Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to Understand Strategy Optimization. My name is Michael Burke, and I'll be the presenter for this session. Let me just do a quick check to make sure that everybody can hear me okay. Just a quick yes from everybody, or not from everybody, but a couple of people. Okay, good. Thank you, everyone. The purpose of this seminar is to explore the strategy optimization process. To go through some of the terminology and best practices. And along the way, we'll look at a simple strategy example. We'll look at the optimization report, and we'll talk about some of the basic platform settings that you need to be aware of that are related to strategy optimization. The course will go for about 60 minutes tonight. And you are all welcome to ask questions in the chat area. Try to keep the questions topical to what we're working on there, but I will try to get to every question. If I do not get to your question, I will give you my email address, and you're welcome to send me an email and ask any questions that way. So if I miss your question, please don't be offended. Just send me an email, and we'll get your question answered. So I'm going to put my email in the chat here. It's mburke@tradestation.com. There you go. And please feel free to send me an email if I don't get to your questions during the class. If you have any trouble with the viewer, with the sound, usually the best thing to do is just to log off and log back on. That usually solves most problems. We have a number of people from around the world here tonight if you've been watching the chat. So wherever you are, welcome. I know that it's very late at night in some places, and it's also very early in the morning in others. So wherever you are in the world, thank you for joining us today. My role at TradeStation is I'm Vice President of Client Training and Education here at TradeStation. Pretty much all of the educational events, the online help inside of the platform, my team handles all of those things. Many of you have been to events with Jesus Nava and Stan Dash. They're on my team. And we provide a number of educational resources, platform, trading, technical ideas, and research, all to help you get more out of TradeStation. So hopefully you find all of this useful. If you have any feedback or any comments, again, please feel free to email me and let me know what you think about the things that we do here for you at TradeStation. The following presentation is for educational purposes only. All of the symbols and trading ideas discussed are for educational purposes and are not recommendations or endorsements. Active trading is not suitable for everyone. Please read the disclosures in the document that I'm going to put in the chat here. This is all of our important disclosures. You can also find these disclosures on the TradeStation website at www.tradestation.com. So let's get started. So our agenda for today is that we're going to spend a lot of time talking about basic optimization as part of the strategy backtesting process. We'll actually be in TradeStation most of this presentation, and we will look at a simple strategy. We'll optimize that strategy. We'll talk about the different methodologies associated with optimization. We'll talk about interpreting the optimization report, and we'll look at some basic global settings so that you can control that optimization process. Before we talk about optimization, let's talk about strategy trading for just a moment. Strategy trading is really what put TradeStation on the map. We are one of the pioneers in the ability to backtest trading ideas on a computer, starting back in the mid-'80s. We created a programming language called Easy Language that facilitates strategy backtesting. You can actually type in your ideas in pretty simple trader-like language and describe just about any idea to TradeStation. Strategies can be based on technical ideas or fundamental ideas, market breadth, just about anything. And easy language has really evolved over the last 20 years into the really the ultimate programming language for traders. A strategy, though, is simply a set of rules for entering and exiting the market. Those rules can be simple or they can be complex. And they can really be whatever you want them to be. TradeStation lets you test your strategies on any symbol, at any bar interval, on any set of historical data. And TradeStation has incredible incredible historical database of back-testable data, up to 40, 50, 60, up to 90 years on some symbols at all intervals. So it's really an incredible tool. Optimization is a process within the strategy backtesting world. It gives you the ability to find an optimal set of parameters for the historical data within the chart. So let's be clear about this. When we talk about optimization, optimization is really the process of identifying the optimal input parameters for the trading strategy over the historical backtesting data loaded into the chart. A lot of people have the misconception that optimization helps you find the best parameters to trade moving forward. Well, that's almost 180 degrees of what optimization actually does. Optimization is the process that can help you eventually identify those set of input parameters that you might have a chance of trading successfully moving forward. But the actual process of optimization is simply looking at the historical data. And so it's identifying those parameters that are most successful in the historical data that you have in the chart. And that's really what optimization does. Now, that can be very useful in a number of ways, including as a performance tool for your strategy. And we'll talk about how optimization can be used as a performance tool. The process of optimization is that it allows you to run through many different combinations or scenarios of the trading strategy's input parameters. Almost every strategy has input parameters. And so this allows you to test how those different input parameters perform historically. In fact, every time you run through those scenarios during the optimization process, a complete performance report is stored for each of those tests. In fact, the process is actually very incredible when you think about all the calculations and things that are going on, and it happens all very, very quickly. So all of the optimization scenarios are displayed in a report. And this allows us to look at things and performance measures that allow us to test the stability and robustness of those input parameters and how performance changes under different input scenarios. Some of the things that I look at when I'm looking at the optimization report are things like how many of the scenarios were in fact profitable? What are the ranges of variability between some of the key factors? One of the things you want to do when you're optimizing is you want to optimize on those input parameters that have the biggest effect on profitability on the strategy, and ignore those inputs that have very small effect on the input of the profitability of the strategy. And we'll talk about how to identify that a little bit here. And we're looking for consistency over different input runs. So as we optimize different sets of inputs, we're going to be looking for stability. We're going to be looking for similar inputs to come up in the top performers of the different runs that we do. But as I said, what optimization does not do is it doesn't tell us what input parameters to trade moving forward. It only is going to give us a guideline of those parameters that performed well historically, and we're going to look for input parameters that are robust and work under different conditions. And we'll talk about how to identify those parameters as we go through this presentation. Sometimes you've heard the term related to optimization called curve fitting. And really, that obviously has a lot of negative connotations to it. But that's the process of optimization. Optimization curve fits the results to the historical data within the chart. It's not a negative thing. It's just that's what optimization does. It tells us what are the best parameters for the data set that's in the chart. What makes it negative if you think that those parameters are going to work moving forward exactly like they did historically. And so we're going to talk a lot about that relationship between the historically optimized inputs and what's going to happen moving forward. So what is the goal of optimization? So the goal is to test your strategy for overall stability and robustness. And we do that by looking at all of the different input scenarios through the optimization process. This will help us group together those inputs that have the best chance to work moving forward. So let's talk about some of the terminology of optimization. There are two methods for optimizing a strategy. There's the exhaustive method. The exhaustive method simply means that we are going to go through every possible combination of inputs based on the input setup during the optimization process. So in the optimization process, we're going to select a range of values in the inputs to optimize. We're going to select an increment, and it's going to go through every single one of those tests. That's why we call it exhaustive. Remember, you can optimize on multiple inputs at the same time. So it creates a geometric mathematical calculation for the number of scenarios that could possibly run. So if I have 2 inputs and there are 10 scenarios for each input, that means there's 100 possible combinations. And you can see that by optimizing more inputs with larger numbers of scenarios for each input, you can get up to very, very large numbers of optimization runs if you're optimizing more than one input at a time. This is where genetic optimization comes in. Genetic optimization is a search method that mimics the process of natural evolution. So it favors those groups of results that are better and bypasses groups that are not. Kind of like America's Got Talent. Not every possible test is examined, but the sampling is significant enough to show you a representative list of the best outcomes. The benefit is that large optimization runs can be done in a fraction of the time of exhaustive. And this time saving is normally worth the reduction in precision. Walk forward is a type of optimization that allows you to look at in-sample and out-of-sample data. You can do a walk-forward optimization both in an exhaustive or a genetic mode. And we'll talk more about walk-forward as we get along in the class. Walk-forward is sometimes called forward testing, although I use forward testing in a little, I think that terminology is a little misleading in that actually what walk forward does is it takes a look at the entire data set and segments it into 2 groups. The in-sample group, where we have, which is typically the larger group, and it will optimize and show you the performance for that set of data. And then it will optimize, again, all the different scenarios on a smaller part of data so that you can compare the larger to the smaller. In my view, forward testing is where I will offset the data in the chart, maybe a year or 2. And in fact, I do that every time I do this. I'll show you this when we get into TradeStation. And I'll do all of my back testing on a set of data that excludes the most recent 1 or 2 years of data. And then once I'm done with my testing, I'll change the data in my chart to show the most recent data and see if my strategy holds up in the 2 years that I excluded initially. So let's move into TradeStation and go through the process here. I'm going to click on the tab at the very top of the viewer here. You'll notice there's 2 tabs up there, one that says slideshow and one that says desktop sharing. I'm going to click on desktop sharing now, and everyone should see my chart. Very good. Thank you, everybody. So the most important thing when you're backtesting a strategy is to understand the environment that you're in. So let's talk about the environment. First of all, this is a daily chart of the spiders going back 10 years. The environment in the chart is how you set it up in the format symbol dialog. So here's format symbol. Here you can see this is daily, interval, and 10 years back. Notice that my last day in the chart is August 11th, 2011. I'm actually excluding the most recent year of data. This way I can walk it forward when I'm done with the process and see if my strategy is held up based on the inputs that I'm selecting as the ones I want to trade moving forward. This gives me that little bit of forward testing that I'm looking for. Next, we want to apply our indicators and strategies to the chart. You'll notice that in the chart already, I have two moving averages. The blue line is a 50-bar moving average of the highs of the bar, and the magenta line is a 50-bar average of the lows of the bar. And my strategy is going to simply be if the price of the bar crosses above the blue line, it's going to be a buy. If it crosses below the red line, it's going to be a sell. This is a reversing strategy. It's going to go long, short, long, short. I'm always in the market. The strategy that I'm selecting is a built-in strategy that comes with TradeStation called moving average cross long entry and moving average cross short entry. This one and this one. This is part of the library of built-in strategies that come with TradeStation. Each of the strategies that come with TradeStation is a component strategy. It takes one trading action. It either buys or sells short. It either sells a long position or it covers a short position. So those are what the two-letter codes are there for each of the built-in strategies. LE stands for long entry. SE stands for short entry. LX for long exit. SX for short exit. And you can mix and match all of these different components into very elegant strategies that you can backtest without doing any programming in easy language. In this case, I'm selecting moving average long entry and moving average short entry. Once they're inserted in the chart, I can go to Format Strategy. And here I can see which components are applied to my chart. Here you can see the moving average cross long entry and short entry, and the input parameters that are associated with those strategies. The input parameters are what we optimize. Here I'm going to click on Format, and let's take a look at the inputs for the moving average long entry. First of all, it's the price that we're going to use to cross above or below our moving average. So here, if the high crosses above my moving average, then we're going to go long. We're looking at a 50-bar moving average. And we have an input called confirm bars. This is how many bars are above the moving average before we take the trade. So in this case, the bar has to be above the moving average for 2 consecutive bars before I'll take that trade. Here we can optimize the length and we can optimize the confirm bars. Unfortunately, we can't optimize the price because there's no way to increment a high there. But what's interesting is that you actually could optimize whether you're trading off the open, high, low, or close by simply doing some creative programming inside of your strategy, where the open, high, low, and close is related to a number, and then the calculation changes. So one of the cool things about easy language is that it can really be whatever you want it to be. Here I'm using component strategies. In order to have a complete strategy, you have to have either a long entry and a reversing short entry, or you have to have an entry and some kind of exit, money management exit or timed exit. In this case, this strategy is going to go long, short, long, short. I'll always be in the market. If we take a look at the chart here, you'll notice that here it takes a long trade. A blue dotted line indicates a winning trade. It then takes a short trade, which trades till here, and then that is a losing trade. You'll see a red dotted line there. Andres, I see your question there. That might be an indication that you need to log out and log back in. If you have a good, stable, fast internet connection, that shouldn't be the problem. That shouldn't be a problem, so definitely take a look at that. So before we run our optimization, let's take a quick look at the strategy performance report for this strategy. I'm going to go to View and Strategy Performance Report. Before we optimize, we want to have basically a benchmark of how this strategy has performed over the last 10 years. So here we can see all trades, long trades, short trades, the percentage. One of the things that's important here is how many tests are there. You want to have a significant number of trades in order for the performance report to be significant. We have 40 long trades and 40 short trades. That's pretty good. Usually, as long as you have about 30 trades, that's probably a good base number to go by. Here I can see the average winning trade and average losing trade. Remember, there's no money management applied to this strategy right now. It's simply a long, short moving average strategy. One of the things that strategy traders often get obsessed with is the top number here. How much money is the strategy making? In reality, when I'm actually going through the process of testing and developing a strategy, I never look at total net profit here at the top. Typically, I look at some of the risk measurements and see if those risk measurements are moving higher as I make changes and tweaks to my strategy. The two that I look at here are the return retracement ratio. That is a risk-reward measurement. It's kind of a replacement for the Sharpe ratio. It's a tool that was developed by Jack Schwager. The formula is rather complex, so if you want to learn more about that, I suggest you Google it or look in one of Jack's books that talks about return retracement ratio. The RENA index is also a risk-reward score. And again, all that really matters here is, are those numbers moving higher at this stage? What I care about as I'm making changes to my strategy is, are those changes helping me in my risk-reward ratios? I'm not so concerned about how much money the strategy is making, although that's important. What's more important are these scores of risk-reward. And so RENA is a great measurement of that. By the way, any of the performance measures here, if you want to get a quick description of what they are, you just have to put your mouse over the label and click, and it will give you a description of each of the performance measures here in the performance report. So let's just make a note here. Our RENA index is 4.78, and that's the number we'll use as our benchmark as we optimize the strategy for the first time. And total net profit is 4,600. Tom, I see your question. The RENA, there's a lot of different ways to look at it. The biggest thing to think about with RENA is the number going up at this point? And there's really no good or bad number. Well, negative is bad, but normally you want that number to be going up as you make changes to your strategy. So the higher you get that number, that's really what that's telling you. Michael, use the mouse scroll wheel instead of the side scroll, and that'll work for you. For some reason, when you click in that dialog, it goes away, but if you use the mouse scroll wheel, it won't. So we're going to optimize our strategy here. I'm going to go to Format Strategy and click Format on the Moving Average Long Entry. Now, there's lots of schools of thought on how to optimize inputs. In my way of thinking, I want to optimize on pairs of inputs that are similar so that I can get a feel for how each set of parameters affects the overall range of profitability for a strategy. I want to know which inputs have the biggest impact on my strategy. So if you optimize all the inputs at once, you don't know which inputs have the most or less or the least effect on the strategy profitability. So here we're going to optimize both strategies, the long entry and the short entry, simply by the length of the moving average. So here, I'm going to click the word optimize. And we're going to set a range of values for the long entry. Here I'm going to set it from a moving average length of 10 to 200 in increments of 10. One of the mistakes that strategy traders make here is they make the resolution way too fine for the increment here. They want to increment on moving averages lengths of increments of 1. And so basically it would test a 10-bar moving average, an 11-bar moving average, a 12-bar moving average. To me, that's over-optimizing. I want to optimize on big values initially. We can drill down a little bit later if we feel the need to, but initially you want to look at the big picture across a wide range of input values, and you don't need a fine resolution for that. So use big increments to start off with to get a big overall view of your strategy. So again, you highlight the input that you want to optimize and click the Optimize button here. And that brings you to the Optimize dialog. Here we're going to select 10 to 200 in increments of 10. I'm going to click OK. Here we get a message, an error message, that says the optimized values you have entered for this selected input may be too large for the current max bars back setting. Max bars back setting is an easy language setting that says how many bars does this strategy need to calculate at the beginning of the chart. This is a number that you have to put in manually, and it has to be large enough to cover the largest input value that you're using for historical reference. So don't worry about this error message right now. I'm going to show you how to fix it here in 1 second. So I'm going to click yes. So I know I have a max bars back error, and I'm going to show you how to fix that. So here I'm going to click OK. We're just going to optimize that one input. For the long entry, I'm going to click on the short entry here and click Format, and we're going to optimize the length for the short entry. So we're going to optimize the same input for both strategies. This will give us a nice matrix of different input lengths for the moving average across long and short. Click Optimize again. This is going to be between 10 and 200 in increments of 10. Click yes. There's that same error message again. I already know that. Click OK. So right now my max bar setting is incorrect, and we need to fix it before we run the optimization. To do that, I'm going to click on the Properties for All button over here on the right. Anytime that you see a max bars back error in a strategy, click on the Properties for All, and here you're going to set the max bars back value in the bottom left for the maximum historical reference that you need, in this case 200. So here I'm going to click OK, and that will solve it. So now my Format Strategy dialog is changed. The bottom is changed to the Optimization Details. Initially, we're going to run a standard type optimization, but we could also run a walk forward if we wanted to. In this case, we'll come back to walk forward a little bit later. I also have the ability to run an exhaustive or a genetic optimization. In this case, anytime we're less than about 5,000 tests, we're going to run an exhaustive. The only time we're going to run a genetic is when we go over 5,000 or 10,000 unique tests. We want to cut down that optimization time. So in this case, we'll leave it on exhaustive. Advanced settings are associated with walk forward and with genetic. We don't need to worry about those advanced settings right at this moment. So we've set up our optimization run, standard, exhaustive. There's going to be 400 possible tests, 400 outcomes. I'm going to click Optimize. So what's happening during that few seconds is that each unique test, each unique scenario out of those 400 unique scenarios were applied to the chart. The chart was recalculated. The strategy created a performance report, calculated the performance report, and stored it. It did that for all 400 of those unique scenarios. So Jay, if you didn't fix the max bars back error, it wouldn't have run. It would have created an error. It would have turned off both of the. You would have had to go back in and fix it. Would not have let you run it. So let's look at the optimization report. I'm going to go to View. I'm going to click on Strategy Optimization Report. So here's the Strategy Optimization Report. The first thing you'll notice is that each row here is a scenario test with a number of performance measures running across the top. Here you go. So let me just get through a couple of the questions here, and then we'll come back. So, John, I'll show you the max bars back setting again, how I did that and how I fixed that. I'll show you that here in a second. And Donald, yes, we're going to show the chart analysis preferences here in a moment. Let me see here. All right, so that catches me up a little bit here. By default, the optimization report saves the top 200 tests. I'm saving the top 400 here because I've made a change to the settings, and I'll show you where to make that change here in a second. Now, I did this kind of in advance. I knew there was going to be 400 tests, so I set it so that it would save all 400 tests. But by default, it really only saves the top 200. So if you wanted to save more than that, then you're going to need to make that setting, and I'll show you that here in a moment. One other thing in that area, just so that you have it, keep in mind that the report, the maximum number of tests that the report will save is 1,000. So if you're running large runs and you want to look at all those results, the best thing to do is to save it to a text file and then display it in Excel. And I'll show you where that is as well. So yes, I'm running the current version of TradeStation 9.1. This is update 10, if that was the question. So Pascal, the way you know that the optimization report is run is it comes back to the test. It comes back to the chart. And once you're back at the chart, you know that it's done. One of the great things about the optimization report is that you can sort by any of the column headings so that you can rank each of these scenarios by whichever performance measure is important to you. Right now, I have it ranked by all net profit. So one of the first things I look at when I run an optimization like this is I want to know out of all of the tests, how many of them were profitable and how many of them were not, just to give me a quick robustness kind of measure for the input scenarios that I selected. So here I can see that the break even is at about a 273. So that's about 2/3 of all of the tests that we just ran were profitable. Some of them weren't very profitable. Remember, this is a 10-year chart. So we made $10 over 10 years, and that doesn't include commissions. So right now, one of the things that I didn't tell you, but I'll tell you now, is that I'm not including commissions and slippage in this initial test. That's something that I usually add farther down the line during the backtesting process. Right now, we're just exploring the concept here. So here in the first column, you can see the moving average length for the long entry. That's the scenario. So here, the very best one was 170 and 150 for the short. 180, 150, 170, 90. So you can kind of see all of those different scenarios here at the top. One of the things you'll notice is that they're all kind of in the same area. In other words, the long entries are all between 170 and 200. That's another one of those stability measures. It shows me that those have been stable over the last 10 years. And the short entry have been kind of all over the place, anywhere from 90 to 150. Those are not as stable. And so that's good to know. It's good to know that the long moving average is more stable than the short. That's something I need to think about as I go further along down the process. The test number is just which test number. It doesn't really have any analytical meaning. It just tells you that's the number during the optimization run. That was the 297th test. Some of the other columns that I'll sort on here just to get a feel is I'll sort on all net profit. This is the percent profitable. So here I can see which tests have the highest percentage of winning trades. Notice that the number of total trades is all in the 20s and 30s. That's a little low, but considering that we're using a 200-bar moving average over 10 years, that's actually not a bad number. It's still a significant number of trades. So I scroll over. Here's my profit factor. Sort by profit factor. Here you can see the profit factor is pretty good. Profit factors are usually higher for trending trades like this than they are for counter trending trades. So you would expect a trade like, a strategy like this to have a profit factor of, 2, 3, 4 to 1. So that's good. The TS index, we'll talk about a little bit later, and the expectancy score. Those are risk-reward scores, very similar to RENA. So here, if I sort on the TS index, this is showing me those strategies that have the highest risk-reward profile. Notice that the gray bar that you see here is the test that had the highest net profit. So that's the highest net profit because that's what we initially sorted on. But it's not the one with the best risk-reward score. It's not the one with the best risk-reward score. So that's something interesting to think about. One of the other things that you can do here, which is very useful, is you can look at the different optimization results in combination with the strategy performance report. So often what I'll do is I'll show the equity curve for the strategy that's in the chart, and I can look at the equity curve for any of these tests now. So all I have to do is bring up the performance report, click on the performance graphs, and now I'm looking at the equity curve for the test that's in the chart. The test that's in the chart is the gray line that you see here in the optimization report. If I want to change the test to a different test, all I have to do is highlight a different test, right-click, and say apply this row to the chart. And then it recalculates the equity curve for that test. And I can look at any of the performance measures for any of these. So here I'm concerned about the RENA index. We started off with a 4.6 RENA. Now we're at a 23.87, so we're moving in the right direction for that RENA index. Return retracement ratio is also up. So we know that our risk-reward scores are going up right now. All right, so let's get some of these questions out of the way real quickly here. So Mark, 200 bars is not the number of bars in 9 years. That's just the number of bars that are set aside at the beginning of the chart so that the moving average can calculate for the first time. That's all that is. So that's the idea. So Brady, how would I feel? Would I feel comfortable about trading what I see here? No, not yet. We don't have any money management in here. We haven't really done very much here. This is a long short strategy, very, very high risk type strategy at this point. Todd, expectancy. Expectancy is a Van Thorpe concept. It's how much money do you make as a ratio of money at risk. Let me just show you everybody that here. I'm going to go back over here. So he's asking about it. Todd's asking about expectancy score here. So a 1.05 expectancy score means that I'm risking $1,000 to make $1,005. So that's what that expectancy score is. So here I'm risking $1,000 to make $980. So I can rank all of these tests to see where that best risk-reward ratio is. It's a concept by Van Thorpe. Absolutely, this works in the FX markets. All right, so let's do a little more geography. Harvey's asking about the information at the top here. So one of the things that we've added this year to TradeStation is an advanced walk-forward analysis tool called the Walk-Forward Optimizer. And the Walk-Forward Optimizer is a way of taking optimization data and applying it to a number of walk-forward tests, which we call cluster analysis. Now, the Walk-Forward Optimizer is an advanced walk-forward analyzing tool. It's a completely separate application from what we're doing here. Everything we're doing here is within a chart. The Walk-Forward Optimizer is a tool that sits outside of a chart. You export optimization data from the optimization process here in the chart, put it into the Walk-Forward Optimizer, and it does additional analysis, walk-forward analysis on that data. We have some additional resources, and we'll talk about the Walk-Forward Optimizer a little bit later in this session. So what the values here at the top are telling you is whether or not there's enough tests in this optimization run. There was only 400 tests here. Was the optimization significant enough to put into the Walk-Forward Optimizer? And here, this is just saying that the results that we have here have a very low number versus what we need in order to run that. So that's all that's saying up there. Donald, no, you can't optimize on ARENA, but you can optimize on either the TS index or the expectancy score. I'll show you that here in a second. I think we've added those to what you can optimize on. So I'll show you that here in just a moment. Okay, so this is our first look at the optimization report. Don't worry, we'll come back there many, many times. So the next thing we're going to talk about are global optimization settings. So for example, Donald's asking, can we optimize on something other than net profit? Absolutely. We can optimize on any of those columns that you saw there in the optimization report. To get to those settings, we're going to go to View and Chart Analysis Preferences at the bottom of the View menu. You have to be in a chart. The chart has to be active in order to get to this menu. Here you're going to click on the Strategy tab, and you're going to select Keep the highest or lowest of one of the fitness functions that we want to optimize on. Now I have this set to 5,000, but I can never get more than 1,000. As I said, I can never get more than 1,000 results into the report. If I want to look at all 5,000 of a test, I have to export it to a text file and look at it in Excel, which is fine. That's easy to do. Here are the different fitness functions. Right now we have not added, this is something that we're planning to add, Donald. We're planning to add both the expectancy and the TS index to this. I thought that we had added that in U10 here, but I can see that we have not. So we'll be adding those. So right now, wait a minute. I may have spoken. There's this one. I did not see. There it is, the TradeStation index. Hey, we did add it. Very good. Excellent. And expectancy is there. Perfect. Okay, good. So we could optimize on any of those fields where we saw those columns. So that's exciting. That's something we couldn't do before and something we've always wanted to do. Here we can set the default sort method as well. Here we're sorting on net profit. Typically you set the sort for whatever your fitness function is, but it doesn't have to be that way. So Michael, it's grayed out because you probably don't have a, well, I don't know why that would be grayed out. Even if you didn't have a strategy in the chart, you should be able to see this. So I'm not sure why that is. So here I'm going to hit cancel. So again, to get to those settings, it's view and chart analysis preferences. Norman, TS index is a risk-reward score, very similar to the RENA score in the performance report. All right, let's go back to our strategy. And this time, we're going to optimize on our second input field here, which is the confirm bars. This is how many bars have to be above the average before it makes the trade. So the bars cross over the average in order to make the trade, but they have to be over the bar for some number of confirmed bars. Here, I'm just going to set this from 1 to 5 in increments of 1. I'm going to leave the best results that we had in there and see how this affects that input scenario. Again, this is just standard, exhaustive. There's only 25 tests in this, so it'll be very fast. Just a blink of the eye. I'm going to go to View and Strategy Optimization Report. Here you can see all 25 tests. And you can see all the tests are profitable. And you can see the different scenarios here for long and short. So here's 3 and 3. I sometimes look for those scenarios that are kind of geometric. They make more sense to me. I just want to make sure that 2 and 2 are good, 3 and 3 are good. Again, we don't want to over-optimize. So we want to look for something that has a chance to work moving forward. And it looks like just about anything we selected for confirm between 1 and 5 would make money. So we're in a good spot here. So I'm going to select 2 and 2, even though that's not the most profitable, but it's the one that I like. It makes sense to me. It's the one I want to test moving forward. So I'm going to right-click and apply that test to the chart. We can go to View, Strategy Performance Report. Look at our RENA index and return retracement ratio. Those stayed about the same. You can see that the long trades are doing much, much better than the short trades, something we would expect as we go over. So that's certainly something that we would expect as we're moving forward in the stock market. Typically, the long trades are going to be performing better than the short trades. The stock market typically is always going up. So there may be periods where we have a down market, but over the long run, the market's moving up. So typically, the long trades are going to do better than the short trades. So let's go back to format strategy. And let's talk about genetic optimization and how we would set up a genetic optimization. So here, we would need to have enough tests in order to make that worthwhile. So what we're going to do is we're going to optimize again, but this time we're going to optimize all inputs instead of optimizing them separately. Now this has a couple of other benefits in my mind. One, it gives me a benchmark for what is the best set of parameters if I optimized everything together. Certainly that goes back to what we talked about earlier, where we are over-optimizing the strategy so that we are really, now we're even more finely curve fitting the results to the data. But to be honest, it's fun to do this, to see what is the best scenario for all of my inputs. And you might have 10 different inputs. You might have money management in there. And it's a great way of just kind of benchmarking the strategy. What's the very best this strategy could possibly do? And so that's one of the things that you can do. So here we're going to optimize the whole thing. Notice that the test count is 10,000. Well, we don't want to optimize all 10,000. So we're going to select genetic. And so I'm going to click Advanced Settings here. And this is where we set our genetic optimization settings. Now, unless you are a professor in statistics, which I'm not, you probably don't really understand how all of these different variables work in genetic optimization. I know that I certainly don't. But I do know that there is a Suggest button here, which allows me to select the correct values for the number of tests that I'm looking at. I click OK. And the total number of tests end up being about 5,000. So it cuts it in half. So it cuts my optimization time by 50%. With larger runs, it could be even more than that. I'm going to click Optimize. Even so, this is only going to take about 20 seconds to run through every single possible scenario. And we're done. Here, if I go to View, Strategy Optimization Report, I want to look to see if the same parameters that we were looking at before are still coming to the top. And notice that they are, in fact. Here we can see the 170s to 200s. Those are still coming up to the top. That's a good sign. That's telling me that the inputs are stable across different types of optimization runs. Notice that the confirm is at 2 and 3, right where I expect it to be. On the short, it's 1. So maybe we should change that to 1, but it's 1 or 2 there. And again, these values are lower like we expected them to be, between 110, 90, 120. So that's kind of what we were expecting. So here I ran a more, well, here I ran a scenario where we looked at all of the different inputs in combination, and the inputs are still in the same family of inputs that they were before. And that's really what I was looking for. Brady, I really don't have a good answer for that question. There really isn't a measurement that tells us how much we're curve fitting. Anytime you do an optimization, you're curve fitting the data to the backtest. So here we're looking for ways to find a set of parameters with trying to avoid that problem of curve fitting. This last example where we optimized everything together, that is the ultimate in curve fitting. We put everything into the kitchen sink and we get a result back. How did that affect RENA? Let's look at that. So here I'm going to go to View Strategy Performance Report. So the RENA went up a little bit more based on the best test there. But again, the RENA has been pretty consistent in the 20s ever since we did that first run. So that's that's what we're looking for. We're looking for some consistency here. Okay, let's go back and talk about walk forward. So I'm going to go back to Format, Strategy, and I'm going to have to set up an optimization in order to show you that. So here we'll just, again, we'll optimize, but this time we're going to zoom in on those candidate inputs that we think we might be looking for. So in the long entry, we know that the candidates that have been doing well are 150 to 200. So we can eliminate those below 150. And the confirmed bars have been very good at 1 to 2. So here we'll just test both 1 and 2. So there's our long entry. So notice what I'm doing here is I'm narrowing down the inputs that I'm focusing on. We're still optimizing here, but we're eliminating those tests that we know did not perform well in all of the other runs that we've done. So we're narrowing down our candidates here. Let's do the same thing for the short entry. Here we know that these candidates are anywhere from about 70 to 120 in increments of 10. And that makes sense. When the market is since the market has a tendency to move up, we want to make those long trades run as long as possible. And if the market goes against us, we want to turn those around more quickly. So that makes perfect sense. One of the things that's important is that, does your strategy make sense? Is it logical that the inputs that you're looking at make sense to the way the markets work? Those are, things that are important. So here I'm going to click OK. So this is approximately 5,000 tests. That's not true, by the way. That's because I have it set to genetic. So here I'm just going to set it back to exhaustive. So actually there's only 144 tests. So that was what was left from the last genetic run. So set this to exhaustive. It tells you how many tests there are there. Here we're going to set it to walk forward. Now, just to be clear, I can run a walk forward here in the chart without having to set the type to walk forward. The reason that the type is set to walk forward here is so that you can export the data from the optimization report for the WFO, for the walk forward optimizer. If you want to use the WFO optimizer, you have to export the data from this run so that that application can read the data. Excuse me. And so here we would give it a name. But in this case, we're not going to use the walk forward optimizer on this test. I can leave this on standard. This is exhaustive. I'm going to click advanced settings. And here I can choose to set my out of sample data. So here we're going to exclude the first 0%, which means we're going to use all the data, and we're going to simply exclude the last 30% of the data for the out of sample. So 70% will be in sample, and 30% will be out of sample. And so this is how you set your walk forward within the chart. Now remember, there's two things going on here in walk forward. There's the walk forward analysis that you can do in the chart using the regular optimization, and then there is the advanced optimization walk forward, which is the walk forward optimizer, where you have to export the data, which we just talked about. But if you want to do all of that work here in the chart, you can. So here we're going to do walk forward optimizing in the chart on these 144 tests. I'm going to click optimize. And everything looked exactly the same. Except now when I go to the view optimization report, notice at the very top here, there is a drop down that says all data in sample or out of sample. So here the best test was a moving length of 170 versus 90 for the short. The confirmed bars were 2 on the long, 1 on the short. So there that gave me that best net profit. That's for all data. Let's see how these hold up in the in sample. This is 70% of the data. Notice that at 70% of the data, those same parameters hold up. It's still 170 and 90, and that makes sense. That's 70% of the data. But how does it hold up on the out of sample 30%? Here we can let's select in sample. So here's the in sample data. I'm sorry, somehow I hit the scroll bar and it changed it. I apologize. This is the in sample test. So here you can see those numbers are still holding up. They're still in the top of this list. If we go to the out of sample, those values are still holding up. The inputs are still the same at the top of the list, and that's what we want to see. We want to see the in sample and out of sample performance to be similar. We call this is one of the one of the things that we talk about in the walk forward optimizer is that robustness. Is the equity curve in the in sample the same equity curve in the out of sample? Do they have the same angle of attack in both of those? If they do, then we have a robust strategy. What's cool is that this same data is also available in the strategy performance report. So here in the strategy performance report, you also have a drop-down that shows you the in sample and the out of sample. And you can look at performance graphs for both and all of the different fields, the RENA index, all of those you can measure in both the in sample and out of sample. So let's review for a moment. So one of the goals here is to identify stability and robustness in a set of input parameters. What that means is that as you go through and optimize on different scenarios, the same input parameters tend to come up to the front of the top of the reports. We want the out-of-sample and the in-sample data to perform equally as well. We want those equity curves to look very similar. We want them both moving up pretty much at the same angle. Since we're going to be optimizing on different data sets, what's important here isn't how much they're making, but are they both making money, and are those equity curves stable? Once we have a robust set of parameters here that we want to test, we can do some optimization runs, save them, and have the walk forward optimizer do the walk forward cluster analysis. Now, in this course, we're talking about basic optimization, but the walk forward optimizer, that window is discussed in an online seminar that is archived that was done by John Clayburgh, which you can access at any time. I'll show you how to get to that here in a minute. And there's also a couple of overviews that you can get to, which is there's a quick tip, and I believe that we have a tutorial in progress for the walk forward optimizer. So those are additional resources to learn about the walk forward optimizer. Finally, the one thing that I talked about at the beginning that I want to do here in the chart is we've done all this work. We've come up with a set of parameters that we have some confidence in. The next thing I want to do is I want to go to format symbol, and I want to change the data in my chart and bring it forward this 1 year that I excluded to see if the performance continues, if I can make more money. So I'm going to click OK, and that brings the data forward 1 year. And I can go to the performance report, and we can see how that performance, oops, let's go all data. We can see that performance. Look at the RENA index, see how that data performed. Here, it looks like it didn't perform as well. We went from about 12,000 in profit down to 10,000. So that would be something that would concern me. Maybe we are over-optimizing a little bit. Maybe I need to go back and look at those parameters again. See why this year didn't work. So in totality, the goal here is to identify a set of potential input parameters to trade forward. And even after all of this testing, I would still run the strategy in the simulator for a short period of time to make sure that in real time, with real-time data, the strategy and the inputs tend to hold up. That's the goal. The goal is to have those inputs hold up, trade successfully moving forward, so I can automate that strategy. Let's take a look at some of the questions here. I got a little bit behind here. So Brady asks, is there a way to test multiple securities? Absolutely. There is a new tool in TradeStation called Portfolio Maestro. It is a portfolio backtesting tool. It allows you to also optimize on a portfolio of symbols with a portfolio of strategies. And so that is an add-on tool to TradeStation. If you haven't heard about Portfolio Maestro, you can learn more about it on our website. But more importantly, we have a 4-part portfolio backtesting strategy series starting in September. My good friend David Stendal, who is a futures portfolio manager, is going to who uses Portfolio Maestro and TradeStation, is going to do a 4-part series on what is portfolio backtesting and how to backtest a portfolio of strategy. So that'll be a great series, and that'll be starting in September. James, these are simple moving averages, and it's simply a crossover of the bars crossing over the moving average. It's not the 2 moving averages crossing. I'll show you that strategy here one more time. I see a couple of questions about the kind of computer I have. Yes, this is one of the latest, greatest computers with 8 megabytes or gigabytes of RAM. This is the first time I've had a solid-state hard drive, which has been so far it's been great. It's been very fast. That doesn't help optimization. My optimization is all done in memory, so it's very fast. But for other things, it's been great. Todd, that's a great question. How often do you optimize? This goes back to that there's a lot of different ways to use optimization. As I said at the beginning, some people optimize all the inputs at once. Some people, like me, only optimize on a few inputs at a time. Some people optimize on huge amounts of historical data. Other people, like me, will optimize on smaller chunks of historical data. And to your question, some people will optimize once and trade that strategy for a long time. Other people will optimize the strategy. I know people who optimize their strategy every week, every month. And so there's a lot of different ways of using this and testing this. So Manuel, I see your question. When will TradeStation be able to buy and sell at the bid and ask? At some point, computers will be fast enough to offer a real-time, a historical bid-ask stream that we can capture and then send to you in the historical record. Right now, there's just too much data. There's no way to provide that. We can simulate it, but we cannot provide that. Julia, we typically don't show that. I'm not going to show that in this class, but there are some archived seminars that cover all of that. In fact, my colleague Dan Desch just did a great one on how the engine works that covers all of those settings very well. Let me show you a link to that. This is the on-demand webcast. This seminar will be archived and available for viewing again within a couple of days. And definitely take a look at all of the different on-demand webcasts that are available in all the different categories: strategy trading, easy language, all the different analysis webinars that are available. Also, go into the university. There's a school of easy language and a school of strategy trading that has lots of resources there, including tutorials and quick tips and books that are very effective in learning this material. If you're new to strategy trading, strategy trading is really the goal of an active trader. The ability to test your ideas before you risk your money is invaluable. And the more you learn about strategy trading, the more you test your ideas, the more you know about the markets. The more information that you have, the better trader you're going to be. So again, I'm going to put my email address into the chat. We have a lot of people on, and so I'm going to try to get to a couple more questions here. But I want to thank everybody for attending. Please tune in to to these webinars as often as you can. We have a lot of great events coming up. In fact, here is a list of those events coming up in August. We have a Getting Started. We have a great Forex and options trading series that are both running right now. So definitely, if you can attend those, that'll be great. So again, thank you everybody for attending. And if I didn't get to your question, please send me an email. I apologize for not getting to your questions, but definitely send me an email, and I will make sure that I answer every single email. So thank you, everybody, and good luck in your trading. We'll see you at another event.